So if we look at this, there's one feature on the implementation guides that actually is very important. Richard, what you're saying is that there's a QA report. This is self-validated. So when we publish the specifications, the system says that this example of that profile, so that data structure, is indeed correct. There's one thing here, but that's just an HTML thing. That's not a problem there. Everything is in green here. So this is very nice because all the examples and all the value sets and everything matches with each other. There's nothing that we say this value is 12, but well, 12 is not in the list of admissible values in the value set, whatever it is. So this is what the QA does. And to do this, there's lots of checking, including the HTML checking. Sorry for scrolling up and down. This means that throughout all the files that are generated here, which is several, a few hundreds, to present this, there is one file that has one HTML link that does not resolve. So that's the level of validation that you're talking about. Throughout your specification, there is one link that doesn't go anywhere. This is intercepted here. So we have quite thorough validation also on what the packages am I using here. So I'm using this uses this as a dependency. So I'm using the terminology, the FHIR terminology to make my IG. That's a good dependency to have. And we can cascade those dependencies as much as we want. So that's the, this is the validation, how the validation looks like. One of the things that I was looking for, or I was looking at, is maybe would be interesting to have a session just to explain, like half an hour, 1 hour, to give and to have a video on that so that people can listen to it and see it whenever they want. Just a navigation of, what is an implementation guide, not from the technical side, but what do we expect to see here? For example, you have functional requirements. Awesome. You have the technical things. Awesome. Some reference, the list of artifacts that's always there. So you have, some people choose to have this format. Some people might choose to have a different format. But what typically do we find in implementation guide? Always a table of contents, some text, and then the artifacts. So there's some consistency to consulting these things. And if I look in a profile here, so yeah, what is in a profile and how do we navigate this and what is this? Well, I see immunization is something. I have, this is immunization. This is my profile for immunization. I see it's based on the FHIR immunization. I can navigate this. Then I go to the FHIR specification that describes this in detail. So I'm just giving here a teaser that I don't know if it would be useful that we have one session just dedicated on what is an implementation guide from a business perspective. So that's something that you can tell managers, why are we still making PDFs and not doing specifications like this? Maybe that could be an interesting topic. But yeah, the QA is really important. Just reminding myself of another thing. Richard, I don't know if you use that, or the people that are doing integrations after this, there is always a couple of files that I think it's special. Yeah, it's a tarball. So every IG produces a tarball. So a package set of files that includes all the artifacts that were used in the implementation guide. So we have all your definitions. If you want to have this, to put this on a server somewhere, this is where it resides. So all the things that are defined in the implementation guide, they are here. So that's good for automation. And if you want to have something that crawls implementation guides and makes a list of things, like I did one a few years ago. Like I went through all my AGs and said, okay, I want to check all the profiles, all the value sets, and all the code systems. And I just made a flat list out of all those, a collection of what had been published. So everything is computable, which is really cool for us that don't like to write documentation by hand. I'll try to shut up now. Any thoughts from veterans and newbies alike?
Just another quick one, Josie. Thanks for that. Just something I thought that might be interesting for everyone to know, just in case they ever wanted to model their resources and actors, etc., a little bit better using PlantUML. If you can perhaps navigate to menu, just hover the mouse over there. Just click on the very first one, COVID-19 case reporting. To go back to the home page. Okay, actually, sorry, hover over menu. Just like menu option, yeah. And then go to technical. Yeah, and then click on, let's say it doesn't really matter. Choose anyone. Doesn't really matter. It's actually quite nice. So you don't always have to have all your resources, you know, listed out in like your JSON format that's generated using the artifacts page, as Josie was referring to. This is quite a big one, as we can see. This is a message bundle that is generated or taken in, should I say, by the EMR. This is the data resource, a bunch of resources that will get submitted to a central data repository. But what I just want to show you, I think will be quite nice for analysts. You can actually model it in UML, and this is all automatically generated from your JSON body, which is the resource example itself, or the resource bundle. This is the bundle in this case. So this is something I thought I'd actually throw out there.
This is cool. So this is the plan2ML rendering of JSON, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, so for those that have not done this, Richard, if you allow me just a bit more or detail on that, the implementation guide also provides narrative and provides us a way to also render plan2ML diagrams. So basically, you go to the source. I can find this one here. So this is lab order bundle. So I guess it should be here. Lab order bundle. And you have lab order bundle. So I'm just going to check the image source, and there should be a lab order bundle. There you go. Yeah, so basically this is that's cool. This is the JSON that you had. That's nice. And it just copy pasted it from the generated files.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. The next step is actually to use a YAML file to actually automate the generation of this in GitHub. That's the next phase I want to consider.
I think we can do something better than that. Maybe I'm just thinking out loud. Sorry, can I nerd out a bit?
Yeah, please. I'd love to hear it.
Because since the last release of the implementation guide publisher, you can actually use these things. I don't know if this would work. I think it would. Think of it. So, so first of all, I do not know if plan2ML allows us to get content from another file. I think it doesn't, but maybe we can generate this file automatically. I don't know. Sorry, thinking out loud. But since the last release of the implementation guide, you can actually put the resources that you have as input to the resource, so to the rendering process. So you can say, take some data, but that data you'll find in that resource. I use this in a demo for the patient summary. A colleague of mine sent me this. I don't have the link at hand, but basically what the scope was, and I also did that for showing products in FHIR. Medication products are really complicated. So that was the demo that I used to say we really need something to display the data, or to allow the data to be displayed. Yeah, so maybe there's a way to even get this from the resource itself. Actually, no, I know there is. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. I know there is. So we can mess a bit with the templates to do this. So the whole tooling. So I'm out of the tunnel now. The whole ecosystem is open source. We can do pretty powerful things with it, and we are adding. So I'm proposing always some crazy stuff because it enables us to do things like, I would like this to be generated, but by plan2ML, but from the source. Okay, the source is there, but until now the source was not available. The source was just for the Java processing to create. Where is it? Let me show you here. These ones. Well, actually, put this one. This is the lab results, lab order. I'll just take the lab results, because I don't know if there's a lab order whole thing.
Yeah. If you navigate back, just go back to where that UML diagram was.
Okay.
One more back again.
Oh, this one.
Just click on. There we go. Just scroll up, and then you'll see this. Yeah, that's it. That link there. Yes,
yeah,
that takes you straight to the bundle.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is an example bundle indeed. So I know I wanted to mention the show another thing. If I have a profile. obviously profile. And I just take this one, for example, lab results. The Java is doing all that, so that there's some Java doing all that. But we can have some side rendering to this by taking the source and doing whatever we want with it. I don't know if it will work with Plan2ML, but that's an interesting prospect to do. Yeah, so we can do pretty cool stuff. The tooling is always open source. Both the HL7 community and we, Digital Square Path, we put a lot of effort to make sure that everything that we do is available to the broad community, because we want to disseminate this as much as possible. So we can do pretty cool stuff there. The UML rendering is really cool stuff. Richard, thank you.
I have a question, Jose. So can you sort of connect how someone at a health facility or somebody who is an implementer would take like that lab test task order and how it would help like a health worker, like how the code connects back to making the health system function better?
Of course, that's a small question with a very, very, very far-reaching impact. My take is that we could do better there. We, the community of IT geeks, we could do better in validating that. Is this really effective? Is this really impactful? So normally, if you have such diagrams such as these, so this is kind of a technical architecture diagram. If you have some architectural diagrams, we can see someone is doing that process, and to do that process, they use that tool, and the other person needs that data to do their work, the other process, and this data comes from somewhere. There is where FHIR works. So FHIR is all about interoperability. So with this comes, if this data from one side is not the same as the data from the other side, then they have problems. Then patient care will suffer inevitably. How much? We don't know. We could do better in quantifying that. How much can it be improved? We are just providing tools. So at the end, what matters is those people that are taking care of the patients. But still, there's of course lots of administrative stuff that we can facilitate, some errors due to missing context or missing data that we can help. But to explain this to some people, I think a couple of diagrams, not like this, if I may use this as an example, but something a bit more functional than this, so not just technical stuff, but something that says you do this, and to do this you have your application, like the application that the nurses do every day, the prescribing application that the doctors use every day, and those applications are connected with this. This is the interface that we standardize, so that if tomorrow you take that part out, you can bring another system in from another vendor and it will still work. So that's our goal, is that we can allow people to work with different systems and data from different places, different countries, different patients. So Gracie, there's a lot that I would take from that question. If we want to explain this, short answer is, if we have a simple diagram that shows what they are doing today and where FHIR plays a role, it's really just a couple of arrows between two boxes, because it's the data that we get in and out. But in this case, for example, I can do some guessing that you have the lab orders. So you have a lab technician sharing some data with, also receiving data in their system from someone that has ordered a lab procedure. And this is the kind of things that we are looking at. So what does the order look like? Do we have one order every time we have a request, or do we have one order for sets of requests? So if I need to do several things for one patient, do I get one message that I have to do everything, or I get this in different bits, in different parts so different messages? And how do I report, for example, that I've done this? Well, I have a status completed, but how do I report back that I've done my job? So this is the kind of things that we can do. I personally tend to prefer a functional view of this rather than a technical view of this, if I have to explain this as a first step, to explain this to people on the field or people that have to face them, because it gets very technical very quickly. For example, you have the method put, which doesn't really matter for a nurse, but for example, the status completed for a lab technician, it does matter that they can report back, or their system should be able to report back to the doctor when it is completed, so that the doctor doesn't call them every 5 minutes to say, Are we there yet? Are we there yet? So there's a couple of
Yeah,
that we can do that.
if you go back to that other diagram, the one with like the happy fire and then the cabana and the superset, something that would like connect it back better to me and how it interfaces with the health system. And maybe it is there, I just haven't looked this over in a long time, would be sort of like figuring out who's the person that is responsible for maintaining and updating the happy FHIR server in the open HIM layer. And then as you get over to the right, closer to like the data visualization, the Kibana, who's going to be using Kibana right in the health system? Is that somebody at the health facility level? So just like mapping a layer on top of that, as somebody who has an MPH background, would help connect, make more connections for me.
Yeah. My personal preference, and one of the things that I'm pushing as much as I can and as softly as I can to get some traction and some tooling support behind it, is that indeed the technical aspects should be at least connectable. If not, so if that layer above this is not, if it's not visible, then it should be ready. We should be ready to have that. So if we say there's a Kibana, yeah, as you said, this means that there's going to be a system somewhere, a server running somewhere that someone has to maintain, someone has to check if it's working, and someone is responsible for. The same thing that there is, same way that there is a Kafka data store. Well, Kafka is just a router, I guess. I don't know. There's an open HIM, and there's a happy server. So where are those? So first of all, where are those and whose responsibility is that? That's typically IT management. So it's management, but it's IT management. But then we also have the clients, and then on the clients we can say the lab is a client. The lab, so the lab, the laboratory is a client. So is the prescribing system. So is the nursing system that they have. All of those can be clients of the system. And then we have this abstraction goes a bit into the actual hospital business. So who's doing what and why do they need this? So if you had this knowledge represented, or if, at least if we can prepare this knowledge to be represented and managed somehow better, then we could say, like, if this box here drops, so if the Kafka server drops, who is going to be impacted? And then we can have a much better idea of what is it that we should do about this, or is all the data going to be funneled this, or more interestingly, in a from a recent perspective, if this thing has a data leak there, who do we have to contact? Or if we see data that we shouldn't see there, where could be the issue? So all of these things are connected. I don't think there is a way that we can cram all of that articulation inside one implementation, especially the technical part of the implementation. But I'm actually always interested in pushing that when we do things, that we also prepare the functional side. For example, and I'll just stop there. In the implementation guides that I work with, first thing that I look for and the first thing that I push for is having a logical data model. So a data model that is not FHIR specific, something that tells the people this is the data that they have, that they need. So I need to have the status of the treatment, whether this is a task or a request or an event, doesn't matter. Those are technical things, but something that we know what our data looks like, to help people have a functional view of what it is that we are doing here. The rest is technical stuff, and that's more easily managed if functionally we agree on each other. Otherwise, I always give the same silly example. If I'm receiving data about patient demographics and I receive gender, and the other system thinks gender is gender identity, that's not a technical problem. That's something failed before the technical implementation, because technically both are supported. But if we start exposing our data for what it means, that's one first step. Second step would be, adding business process diagrams, business architecture here. I would love to see that happen. I don't know if anyone else has the same pain and desire that I have. I like to see architectures, especially functional ones.
Yeah, thanks, Josie. If I can maybe just jump in quickly, that's really great information. Out of curiosity, sorry, I don't want to hijack this call. Please, anyone, just interrupt me if I'm taking up too much time. The link that I just shared in this chat, there's some sort of like functional use cases really that I was trying to translate from the business need around this FHIR-side. If you can maybe have a quick look at that and just, you know, is this something that you think would be beneficial to the community? Is trying to better understand, you know, this is something that represents like the key data points for the IG itself. So what does it really mean is that you have every business will obviously have a minimum data set or some data set defined. What are the use cases? I mean, what are you trying to achieve using this minimum data set? So this diagram of all the axes and with some bit of level of flow as well between different systems was actually derived from that minimum data set, but also I didn't worry about like the type of status or the type of I don't know, practitioner. I just kind of consider a lot of things like metadata in some cases, and because we do have metadata, and then focus on the key things like the codes that are used, the specimen IDs, the order numbers, any other additional IDs that's been broken down into more details in this use case kind of context summary at the bottom. Is this something that you're referring to that kind of articulate a better picture to someone who's trying to understand what this thing's about?
I would ask Grace. So Grace, Grace, if you want.
That is definitely closer. And in some ways it would be even more informative if there was sort of like, I think this is fine, but like how frequently does the nurse do these things, you know, each day? Are some of the tasks like more weekly, monthly, quarterly? I think this sort of gets at it, or just even just other layers that would be helpful for me to understand the system from the nurse's day, about how much time do they spend doing these tasks, how much of it is automated versus how much of it is manual. Those are the things that would be really interesting, but this already paints a more like or a picture that I can understand better.
I see.
Yeah, Gracie, and that's it. So I think this is the way out. So it's the direction out. It's maybe not the end of the tunnel, but it's in the right direction that we can see, okay, I see the nurse doing this and just poking a bit there. Not only how much time the nurse is spending on this, but how many mistakes are done because this is not done, or that this is not usually well done, or whatever it is. So, or because the data is not there, so the nurse does not even know that this has to be done. So there's lots of things that once we have this more functional view, more down-to-earth view, then we can actually start checking, like, is this the key point? Is this is this going to impact patient lives or not? So yeah, Richard, this is really cool. Thanks for making this.
Thanks, guys, and actually, thanks for the comments. It actually just came clear to me that actually makes a lot of sense, because so far everything that I've done in the IG, myself and my team, is specifically on the benefit to the use of the technology, the benefit of the workflow, the benefits of supporting systems. We need to have a benefit statement that says, sell this, like why must the implementer use this to improve their day-to-day business needs? And that is something I haven't done. That's a big gap here, actually. So thank you so much for calling that out. That is definitely something we need to build into this. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Gracie.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Was I able to postpone the testing discussion until the very end? I know Richard asked for this. I don't know if we have any other topics, but maybe a quick check, because it's always good to check. Jan, how is it feeling so far? Not putting you on the spot, but just, comfortably saying, are you relating to these things that we are doing? Or...
Absolutely, yeah. So I think I can follow. So that's good. And yeah, I need to get comfortable with the basics and just watch some more introduction videos, for example. Yeah. Yeah,
indeed. So this is, it's not the basic, like what you can do or what kind of discussions that you can have once you have the basics in there. But yeah, do we want to talk a bit about testing?
Jose, we have Richard's hand up.
Oh, Richard, go on. Sorry, I couldn't see it.
No, sorry. Actually, that's an old hand. Sorry, please continue.
Okay. The other Richard was talking about testing, right? We'll assume.
Hey, Jose, yeah, if you'd like to, you know, the test script resource. I guess I should go on
Yeah.
video or something. You know, the test script resource is, at least to me, quite complicated, and I'm curious if you've had a chance to try it, if there are implementations of it, and how you came up with the idea to create well, I don't know if it's a conformance resource, but to create an actual FHIR resource type for test plan. So just kind of ground up there on testing.
Yep. So this is very nascent stuff, but for example, if we have the, let me see, we have, I can take this one. So if I have the, I can actually just go here. So I know that the nurse will have to assess client, for which the nurse will use these, the information and the events and all these things. So these, sorry, the nurse will have to do these actions, these use cases. And for this, we do some things. We do our profiles and our things. So let me take one, document vaccination events. So at the end, our story is the nurse has to be able to document the vaccination events of a patient, if I'm reading this correctly. Then we make profiles, we make value sets, we make whatever we want. And then we have to say, okay, how good is this solving the problem? So if the nurse submits a vaccination event, can this be done? I mean, if that cannot be done, then we are not really doing anything. But okay, but how can we test that? How can we test that the vaccination event is properly documented according to what we define? So that the date of vaccination, if it's mandatory, that it's always there, that the vaccine code is always there and it's one of the allowed codes. So all the technical specifications, how can we validate them? So if I take that, there are ways in FHIR, there's a test script resource to do things like post this query and do that query and check that query back. And that is the execution of this, let's say. What I did find a gap, and I'm just proposing a new resource, which is before the execution of that, or the execution details of that, I need to say, in order to test the vaccination events use case, documentation of vaccination events use case, I need to have what I'm just now, for sake of clarity of arguing, I'm calling it a test plan. And the test plan is like, you shall have this server, you shall have this data pre-configured on the server, and here's a couple of test scripts, that's the how. But at the end of this, the first 5 test scripts have to be successful. The other 3 test scripts, if they are not successful, you should have an explanation of why they are not successful, because they did not have the data, or you don't use that value set, whatever. And the last 3 is just bonus points or whatever. So just taking something on a much higher level than just the post and the get requests, but saying like, this functionality as a whole has this as a test plan. So these are the criteria that have to be met. These are the dependencies without which you don't have a good testing bench. So these are the things that you need to test it. And if we have that, then we can do, I guess, much more mature testing. We can say the same test plan for everyone. Everyone runs the same test plan. They have the same criteria. And for me, very important is that we kind of force the people that are defining this, for example, document vaccination events. We force people to say, how do you want this to be tested? And if they come up with things like, just do whatever the nurse thinks it's important, that's good. But if they say, if the nurse enters a vaccination event twice, same event twice, as the same patient within the same time period, the same vaccine, the same vaccine code, then the server should reject it. If we want to add that as a functionality, then we can document it as in a test plan. So while posting and getting resources, it always works. If we say post 1, post another one with the same date for the same patient, for the same code, and see what the server says. And if the server should say no, do all of that and then show a screenshot that your system correctly stores the right information or correctly is pushing and retrieving the right information without saying that, the servers can do this. I mean, the technical transport is okay, but let's say if we have a requirement that at any moment the vaccines and the allergies should always be shown on the screen on the patient demographics. If that is our criteria in the assessing of the patient, then we can put in a test plan. In this step, you have to prove that your system is correctly displaying the information. Not that it does a post and a get, but it actually displays the information. So send us a screenshot. So looking at all those, that's the reason for the proposal, and in that experience, that's the reason for a proposal for a thing called test plan that says more from the business side, what needs to be tested here, not how it's going to be tested. It's a bunch of tests, gets, posts, screenshots maybe for non-automated stuff, but what needs to be tested here? Richard, does that start answering?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks.
I see some more chat comments. Okay. Oh, dedicated communication channel that we can use outside of these calls. Chat.fire.org. It's always there. It's a very open community. It's a very collaborative space. So I invite everyone, if you don't have an account on chat.fire.org, go and create one. It's really, really helps. Any questions? Yeah.
Sorry, just to jump in, going back to the testing, forgive me if it's already been spoken to, but something that is actually quite a powerful way to conduct tests is using Postman. I'm pretty sure, I think many of us are familiar with regards to Postman. That's also quite useful when it comes to testing your lab orders, your results, and your lab processing, etc. So that's what we do quite often. We actually execute our tests using bundles that we've created in conjunction with the FHIR-IG itself. Then we actually create a whole bunch of variables within Postman to support randomized data, perhaps even referencing existing data sets or static data that's used to submit information that gets submitted to a central data repository. That all happens through Postman. So just thought I'll kind of throw it out there, that Postman's a really cool tool to assist with testing.
Yeah. So when the other Richard was talking about the testing and the test script, one of the things that I wanted to do some time ago was, can I convert these automatically into a Postman? Because Postman is a very democratic tool. Everyone has access to it. If not Postman, you have Hopscotch, which was called Postwoman before. So it's the open source version of that. It's really cool. And that's why it's needed. So this is a draft of the test plan resource, very early draft. And you see that for each test run, there can be a script, and the script can be Postman, Gherkin, or FHIR test scripts. So I would be very interested when the community, not if, but when the community comes up with a way to say, this is how we test, and click this button here, whatever there somewhere, to get the Postman collection to test on your server. That would be awesome. And that's pretty much the direction that we give people. These are the specs, and if you click this button, you'll get everything you need to test it at home. So does that relate to what everyone is also thinking or hoping?
Is there an ETA for this test plan, Josie?
It has been submitted last night. Really, it's really the last mile for getting things approved into new release of FHIR. If it gets approved, it will be tomorrow, and assuming it is approved, then it will be available in the FHIR-R5 release, which is due in a couple of months. I mean, 3 months, 4 months.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, then we won't have something to play with.
Sounds great. Thanks, Josie.
Jose, so what kind of technical knowledge do you have to be able to run these tests?
My goal is to see that at least, first of all, the technical people have to be able to. So if you want to test, you should be able to run Postman. I mean, run Postman collections. That's it. If you ask a technical person, can you run a Postman collection? The answer should be yes or no, or I have no idea. If the answer is yes, then that's it, pretty much. If you do things on Postman. So I think it depends a bit on the technology. But taking Postman as an example, as a very common tool, these things are, I would not say niche, but they are tools that became so common that people just gained some familiarity with it. So if you say, can you use Postman? If the answer is yes, then by definition, that person will have the surrounding knowledge to say, okay, here's a GET request. Here's where you get the definition of the GET request. Here's where you get the data. So I think you have to be a bit technical to run the technical tests. Hopefully, we can also navigate in the direction that you don't have to be. You have a user interface that says, do this, click here on your system, and the rest is up to us. We are still a bit far from that. So yeah, at this moment, I would say you have to be a bit technical to run the tests.
That's helpful. And then just one last question. I'm looking at, the screen, and it has several tests. About how long might it take one to get through these tests? I'm sure there's a wide variation, but if you could give sort of a ballpark figure.
No, it depends more on whether they are automated or not. So if you have 1,000 tests and they are automated tests just to check if the server is compatible with what we think, then it takes 1 second, 2 seconds. If you have manual tests, then it depends on how long the people can click the buttons, go to the screen, do some copy paste, etc. But there's maybe one interesting thing. There is the part of the test design. If you say we need this to be tested, there are two things that are normally implied there. Is that someone has to say how this is tested, so someone has to design the tests and provide the data, etc. And the other thing is executing the tests. Executing the test is typically not a lot of time. What takes time is designing the tests, and after the execution of the test, you see, oh, this is not clear, or this is not documented, or this is wrong. We have to fix the system. So those iterations, they take some time. But if we take those out, which happen in every system, the biggest amount of time, I think, is the test preparation. And that's why if we have a test plan, we are pushing this back to the specification owners, so that when I make an IG, I'm forcing myself to say, if this IG is, if this implementation guide is to be testable, it's part of my job then not only to make the diagrams and the profiles and the value sets, but also to design the test plan for this, the minimal test plan for this. And normally, just one point there, it also means going back to the stakeholders, to the ministry, to the organization management, and say, or someone says, I need someone to sign off because I think these are the test plan. This is the test plan for these artifacts, but I'm just a technical guy. I don't know if this is sufficient testing. This is more of a collaborative effort. So it is hard to say how much the testing will take. The test execution itself should be rather quick if it's not too much manual labor. The iterations, well, if everything is working, then you have less iterations. If everything is not working, then you have much more iterations. And the test design, we are trying to push it to the left, so push it backward to the specification owners, so that the testing, and this is the point, the testing should not be an afterthought. Testing should not take 7 months in the last month of the project. Testing should be prepared well in advance. That's pretty much the idea here.
Jose, we're almost at time now, so we have 1 minute to go. We have one question in the chat. That will be the last question from Paulina. She asks she asks you to tell us more about how the interoperability layer works in the context. Yeah, it's two-pronged questions. Pauline. I'll just read through her question.
Yes, I'm really sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
there she goes.
Yeah. Go on.
So I'd just like to ask whether you have any specific difficulties in terms of interoperability. So is it possible to have collaborations with ministries of health or departments of health? And what are your biggest barriers to maybe implementing interoperability?
So all we are doing is kind of providing the technical tools for that. I would first, I don't know if you're in contact with AHIN. They have done some work on the interoperability and the things that we are doing here. So, and since they are in your overall region, you should be able to contact them if there's commonality of interest there. Otherwise, what we are doing is exactly to say how can two systems or end systems be connected to each other. That's a long discussion, like what can we do there? But what we're basically doing is to provide a standard way for those systems to collect data and to share data across many systems. Yeah, interoperability is the core of what we are doing. So this is a technical standard for defining interoperability mechanisms. I'm sorry, I cannot speak longer. I mean, I can speak much longer than that on this topic, but
yeah.
But please reach out at any time. So if you go to chat.FHIR.org, there's lots of physicians that say, what does it mean for me? What can I do to help this, or how can this help me? Just engage with the community, and that would be a good step for longer discussions.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And Jose, just so you saw, I took the liberty of creating a Google form. If anyone would be interested in participating in a FHIR-side chat Slack, I'd be happy to set that up for everybody.
Okay. Yep.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
If there's nothing,
Yeah.
Anything else urgent for us to discuss? So then, if not, then thank you very much for joining the session. Jan, looking forward to see how you're doing. Please join the next sessions. And
Will do.
yeah,
Thank you.
everyone, thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.